All right. We are starting reading class. For my virtual friends, I gave you this sheet. This is what we are going to be discussing. Daedalus and Icarus. Interesting names. Has anyone heard of these names before? These are characters in Greek mythology. Does anyone know what mythology is? It is a genre of literature. So we are talking about the ancient Greeks. They had a very interesting, well, we call it mythology. They had belief system and gods and how the world ran was very, very interesting. So what is mythology? Is it real or is it not real? Cole?
Not real.
It's not real. They are make-believe stories. Does anyone else have a, yes, Sam?
Can I sharpen my pencil?
No, you should have done that before. So it's a traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of a people, in this case, Greek, the Greek mythology, or explaining some natural or social phenomena, typically involving supernatural beings or events. So the Greek mythology is an amazing cast of characters with a lot of special powers. Their whole god system was, I need everybody to track. Has anyone ever heard of Percy Jackson?
I love those movies and books.
That is a perfect example of the merge of Greek mythology to modern history, or the modern world. Lots of interesting characters, lots of interesting powers, all make-believe, but the ancient Greeks, that was their belief system. Fortunately, they were taught about Jesus and they're Christians. But way before Jesus, this whole Greek pantheon of gods and characters were predominant. And it's interesting. And they always have a very strong moral. Who remembers what a moral is? Jonathan.
Like the meaning or the lesson of the story.
Meaning or lesson. So I want you to follow along with me, and I want you to listen very closely to the story. I want everybody looking at their story, sitting up straight, and following along. All right, Daedalus and Icarus. Once upon a time in ancient Greece, there was an architect by the name of Daedalus. What is an architect? Cole.
Someone who like plans out buildings.
That's right. He planned buildings. When the king of the island of Crete, which is a Greek island that still exists today, entrusted Daedalus with the job of designing and building his new palace, Daedalus was overjoyed and took his son Icarus to accompany him on the new project. He worked long and hard. The palace he built was nothing short of spectacular. The gardens were as beautiful as a fairy tale. The living quarters were fit for a king, and there was an underground labyrinth that was supposed to be secret. What is a labyrinth? An underground labyrinth. Anybody know what that means? Grayson.
Like it's like a room that you hide in when like big storms hit.
No, but you're right in underground. But it's not necessarily a room. It's huge. Luke.
Secret base?
No. Jonathan.
The basement?
No. Helen.
Where they keep people?
Owen.
Prison?
Huh?
A prison?
Nope. So a labyrinth Who has ever been, I guess the only thing that I could compare it to in our time is a corn maze. Who's been to a corn maze? So a labyrinth is a giant maze. In Greek mythology, there were usually monsters in there, and there were secret passages. There were dangers that would lurk around each corner, and you had to find your way out. So a labyrinth is a ginormous maze. So this king has a labyrinth underneath his palace, which is interesting. Wonder why you would need a labyrinth. The king, okay, so then he could not allow Daedalus and, wait. I missed a page. Underground labyrinth. Okay, here we go. That was supposed to be kept secret. The king inspected the finished project and loved it. Daedalus thought his job was through and started packing his and Icarus's belongings for the long trip home. The king, however, had another plan. If he was to ensure the labyrinth would be kept a secret, then he could not allow Daedalus and Icarus to leave. Trying to be nice, the king provided the architect and Icarus luxurious living space in the highest tower of the new palace, fine food, even servants. None of it, however, could replace their freedom or their home. Wise and patient, Daedalus started feeding wild birds on the windowsill. Every day as the birds ate, they shed a few feathers. After a while, Daedalus had collected a lot of feathers and some leftover wax candles. As part of an escape plan, Daedalus fashioned 2 sets of wings with the feathers set in wax. All right, 2 things we need to keep in mind. So the feathers are from birds. What is he putting to attach the feathers to the wings? Grayson. Wax. Keep that in mind. Donating one, he gave the other set to his son Icarus, but warned him, don't fly too low or the sea will soak your feathers. Don't fly too high or the sun will melt your wax. So 2 things to remember. Together they flew from their prison up into the air. Icarus beat his arms and soared after his father. The sea shimmered below him. To fly, he thought, to soar with the gulls. He loved it. Icarus grew so excited by his new power, he flew upward toward the clouds, forgetting his father's warning. What was his warning? Olivia. Yes. Suddenly a feather loosened from his artificial wings. Then another fell off. He stared at them. The wax was melting fast. His wings were coming apart. He had flown too close to the sun. At this very moment, Daedalus turned and could do nothing but watch helplessly as the wax melted from Icarus's wings and Icarus plummeted to the unforgiving sea. Dun, dun, dun. A happy ending, friends. However, what was the warning that Daedalus gave Icarus? He told him not to fly too high because why? Cole.
The sun will melt the wax on them.
And not too low because, or don't get them wet in the sea because, Jonathan.
Because the sea will soak your wings.
That's right, and the wings won't work. The feathers will get wet and they won't work as well. So, what is the first thing Icarus does? Does he listen to his father? No. So, a lot of it was he was excited. I would be excited if I were able to fly. That would be super awesome. So I think what happened is Icarus got overly excited and then he overdid it and got himself into grave danger. So, consequences and implications. What is a consequence? What is a consequence? Owen.
If you like do something and then your parents like take something away or something.
Right. A consequence can either be a positive thing or a negative thing. Would you say Icarus's consequence was good or bad? Was it a good consequence or a disastrous one? Luke?
Disaster.
Yes. So how can you take this myth and apply it to your own life? Are consequences applicable in your own life, in our world today, or is it only applicable to the Greek mythology from ancient Greece? Let's wake up, friends. What is something that you could apply to your own life about consequences? Helen.
Let's say like sometimes my mom tells me to take out Roger, and then let's say I'm like brushing my teeth and I'm like, okay, and then sometimes I usually forget to, so then what she does is that she makes me like play with him for a fair one, which I always
So your consequence if you don't take him out is you get to play with him?
Well, like I have to watch him for the rest of the day.
Oh, so he's your responsibility for the whole day. So that initially sounds like fun until you want to go to a friend's house and go play, and then you're like, oh, I have to take care of Roger. So it's a very clever consequence disguised as fun, but you have responsibility. Very good. What's another consequence that you could apply to your own life or the world for that matter? When you read something like this, the consequences are very sober, but how can you apply a consequence to your own life or to the world? Cole.
If I sometimes don't clean my bunny's cage, and then my mom says I can't play video games for the rest of the day or watch TV.
That I'm sure is a very horrible consequence if you can't play your video games or watch TV. But that is a consequence that's very applicable. I'm sure a lot of you have had something that means a lot to you taken away for a period of time because of a consequence that you didn't do what you were told to do. Grayson.
So I maybe if I'm like at a friend's house and I have to go and I leave, and then when we get home I'm supposed to eat lunch, but then I said maybe later, and then I didn't eat lunch at all.
Then you don't.
And then no more snacks until dinner.
So then you're starving. Yep, that's a good consequence. If you don't eat when you're supposed to eat, then you don't get to have something before the next meal. That is a definite consequence that's very applicable. Luke.
Usually I'm in my room playing video games with Owen, and then my mom from downstairs, she says clean my room, and then after like an hour I forget, and then my mom comes in and it's still not clean, so I usually use Fortnite for the game.
Another video game consequence. Jonathan.
Like if I do something bad or not listen to my parents, I don't get to watch TV, or sometimes if I do something, I don't get to play with a toy that I like for a few days.
Yep, that's the consequence. Jeremiah.
If my parents ask me, one time me and my brother took my dog Sadie out, well, my parents I think told us to take Sadie out, like really early in the morning, and then we forgot to do it, but then we did it, but then when we got back, they had punished us.
Well, because you didn't listen, right? Consequence.
We have a woods, we live right next to a woods, so we lost Sadie in the woods, but we got from there.
So you just let her run wild in the woods?
For like 10 minutes, and we went from there.
'Cause I live in the woods too, and there are a lot of fun animals to chase in the woods if you're a dog. Like squirrels and I don't know if Sadie likes squirrels, but they're very fascinating if you're a dog.
I don't think you want to mess with Blueberry when she sees a squirrel.
Dogs change when they see squirrels. They turn into running beasts.
When I say squirrel, Liberty Zero, she like looks out the window.
Oh yeah. Yes. It's hilarious. I think it's funny. Luke.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Usually with my dog, he's in my mom's office because like he was following my mom for some reason. And so he's in my mom's office on the main floor, and there's like a window to see outside. And then when my mom is on a call, and I'm playing video games with Owen again, I just hear him start barking, and I come down, and of course there's just one squirrel in the yard, so he'll bark at like anything in the yard.
Yes. That sounds familiar. So, all of you have a very good sense and idea and experiences of consequences. What about cause and effect? What was the effect of Icarus not listening to his father's warning and flying too close to the sun? So if we harken back to our story, let's go to Daedalus is the father, and he is very wise. He watches the birds. He sees how they fly. He starts collecting feathers. He designs these wings. And he makes one for his son. But if you look on, well, it's hard to say. It says Icarus, he made a set for his son Icarus, but warned him, don't fly too low, or the sea will soak your feathers. Don't fly too high, or the sun will melt your wax. So Icarus was given the warning. We see and read that he didn't follow it. What happened because he did not follow his father's warning? Did he have a joyful ending? No. It had a very stark and disastrous consequence. What happened? The things to remember is the two W's in this case. We touched on this. If you got too close to the sun, it was going to melt. The what? Wax. Got too close to the water, it would soak the... So really, what did Icarus have to do? He couldn't fly too what? Too low, or he couldn't fly too... So all he really had to do is follow his dad and fly medium. But what did he do? He did not listen to his father. What did he do, Christian?
He flew high and the wax melted and the wings fell off.
Yeah. And what was he flying over?
The sun?
No, flying over.
The sea?
Yes. So the sea isn't a little body of water. It's a very large body of water. It's probably the Aegean Sea, which is very big, large sea. So you can't swim to the side of the ocean because he could have been miles and miles out. Yes, Em.
I have another thing about the consequence.
Yes.
When Adam and Eve ate the apple.
Yeah, that was a very big consequence too. What happened when Eve ate the apple? There was what? Sin. Yes. Paradise was no longer, and sin entered the world because Adam and Eve didn't listen to who? Yeah. So major consequences. So let's do some sequencing, and then we're going to put this away until tomorrow, where we're going to work on it some more. So, first thing that happens, Daedalus gets a job from who? Daedalus is a what? A doctor, a plumber, what is he? Coal. I need the answer first, please.
An architect.
An architect. And what is your comment?
That my mom was an architect.
Oh, very cool. So is my husband. So architect. So the first thing he does is get a job from who? Daedalus gets a cell phone call from who? Well, not really, because they didn't have cell phones back in ancient Greece. Who contacted Daedalus about a job? Winsheen, the king. So that's the first thing that happened. All right, so he gets a job to build what? Or to design what? What is he going to design for the king? Everybody track. To design what? Just say it out loud. Palace. What is the next sequence of events? What do they do? So Daedalus accepts the job. Is he happy, excited? How does he feel about this? Everybody look at your picture or your writings. It says Daedalus was and took his son Icarus. So what was he? Overjoyed. Does that mean he's happy?
Yes.
All right, the next key component is he takes his son. What is his son's name? What is his son's name? Just say it, please. When my back is faced to you writing, then just say it out loud. All right, so he takes Icarus. He works very long. Does he finish the project?
Yes.
Is the king happy?
Yes. Yes.
What's the oops that Daedalus was not expecting? What was designed under the palace that was top secret? If you don't know, look at your story. We are following a sequencing and you need to pay attention. So, the living quarters were luxurious. Everything was beautiful. The king inspected it and he loved it. However, there was one little glitch. Something was built under the palace that was top secret. Emmy. The what? The maze, the labyrinth. So, all right, so top secret. What happens next? Because of the labyrinth and it's top secret, what happens to Icarus and Daedalus that they were not expecting? Everybody look at the story and pay attention. We're at the labyrinth. Everything was hunky-dory. They were going to pack to go home. Actually, I'm going to write that. They're packing. Now what happens? What did the king say? Oh, by the way, there's a slight change in the plan. Winsheen. They have to stay there. Why? Winsheen. They have to what? No, they don't have to guard the labyrinth. They want to keep, the king wants to keep it secret, so Daedalus and Icarus have to stay there. They have lovely accommodations, but are they prisoners? Yes, they are. It's not a normal prison, but they can't leave, so they're prisoners. So Daedalus and Icarus, prisoners. Now what? What does Daedalus start doing? Does he give up and fall into desperate despair and depression? What does he do? What does Daedalus do now? Look in your stories and look for the answer. And I want to see everybody responding because I keep getting the same hands up. So we are where at the story where Daedalus and Icarus find out that they can't leave. They have a wonderful house, of quarters above the tower, high in the tower, luxurious living space in the highest tower of the new palace. Fine foods, even servants. None of it, however, could replace their freedom or their home. So what does Daedalus do? What does he start watching? What does he start planning? Does he give up or does he start do something different? Helen,
Do something different.
what does he do?
He feeds the bird feed, and he collects the feathers that they.
That is correct. He's watching the birds fly. He's seeing how they use their wings. He collects their feathers. What does he do next? Luke.
He starts putting together wings.
Yes. So what are the two key components of these wings? Owen. No. What are the wings made out of? Owen.
Feathers from birds.
And Olivia? Wax. Two very strong components to these wings. So what does the father say to his son Icarus? We've already talked about this, but what is the warning? Do not fly too high and do not fly too low. Why? Emma.
If you fly high and get too close to the sun, then the wax from the wings will start melting.
That's right. And if he flew too low, what would happen, James?
His wings would get wet.
Yes, and the feathers would no longer work. So does he listen to the warning? No. He does not. It doesn't end well for Icarus. So the consequences we know, the sequencing we know. Again, this is so important. When you take your test in the spring, this is the stuff that's going to be on it. You are going to be reading and you're going to be answering questions. So that is why, and it's just important. When you get to 4th grade, there's going to be more comprehension. And like I said before, on and on and on. This is crucial. You may think it seems redundant and boring, but it's important. Okay? That's why I'm doing this with you.